Hi, everyone. Hope everyone is doing awesome when you're watching this. We are so excited. We are feng shui with Anita and Cheryl. Hey, I got the
Cheryl.
pointers right this time.
Well, it depends where you're looking.
Yeah. And we are introducing our beautiful flock to our flock. And the acronym flock, F.L.A.W.C, stands for Fruit Loop and Wind Chime Club. That's where it started. But we actually, we've actually got a lot of other different interpretations of that. So, anyways, we just like to have a lot of fun and introduce our flock to our flock. So, Cheryl's going to introduce our beautiful guest
Oh,
today.
I'm
Whoa, and the crowd goes shh,
right.
wild.
And just chatting with her before this, she was just at an event in Finland. I think I'm correct.
Yes, correct.
6,000 people. We're just opening up in Canada, and that might mean something to people down the road. It may not, but oh, I can't wait to hear and chat with this beautiful, beautiful soul. Michelle Karen. Oh my gosh. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the flock.
Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Anita. I'm so excited to be with you. You are like old friends of mine, so I feel it's a reunion. Thank you.
Yeah, it is. It's like I say, we're having a pajama party without pajamas and wine, right? Just the girlfriends reuniting. So right now you are in Helsinki,
Yes, where I was born.
where you
I'm
were born
Hungarian.
and raised, and I mean, you just have some amazing stories. And of
Oh,
course, we don't have time for all of them. Um, so when you're not in Helsinki, then you're in the
Phoenix,
U.S.
Arizona, but I'm
and
also
uh,
in France.
and your
Uh,
home is Phoenix when you're
Phoenix,
when you're not traveling.
and yeah, I actually live in three countries, so it's a little complex. And then I'm traveling all the time, so I'm a citizen of the world officially, living in a suitcase pretty much.
I love that. The citizen of the world.
world.
And you have you have some amazing stories. Cheryl, do you want to
I do.
uh,
I do.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I'm
So,
I'm watching her. She's like, "Okay, let's go. Let's go."
well, I can remember at one of the events hearing just a little bit about the catalyst that started you on your journey. And for those people that know nothing about Michelle, she comes from a background of astrologers and she is a shaman. But I would love for you to share a little bit about what happened and what created that shamanistic journey that you're on.
Well, it was a head-on train collision in the jungle in Peru. I was going to go there just for a week with a friend of mine, so I didn't even have anything. I had no computer, nothing. It was just a little week. And I ended up staying 3 months in Peru because after this head-on train collision in the jungle, my friend had three broken ribs. I had absolutely nothing, which is impossible because I was standing in the train at the time of the collision, which was pretty intense, and one of the trains was flattened, and people had broken legs, broken arms, broken jaws. I mean, it was very horrendous. And I mean, it's a long story, but anyway, we landed back in Cusco, and there, because I had nothing, and it came after having met the Q'eros, Doña Maria, who is one of the Alta Mesayok, like one of the popes of the Q'eros in the Q'ero world. The Q'eros are a tribe who retreated in the mountains when the conquistadores came, and they stayed hidden in the glaciers for 500 years until Don Manuel Quispe had a dream that if they didn't come down the mountains and start initiating little brother, little sister, us, the world was going to oblivion. And every time I came out of my hotel, a Q'ero was waiting for me. And at the time, you know, I thought this was normal. What did I know? It was my first time in this lifetime in Peru. And they would take me places, and then they asked me to become the godmother of 2 Q'ero children. And all sorts of crazy things started happening, you know, initiations and ceremonies and things that I really did not understand at the time. And they told me, and then I went back to Arizona 3 months later when my friend could travel again, and I was changed. I was changed physically, I was changed internally, and I went immediately back to Peru, and I never stopped going there. I've been going there now for almost 17 years, every year, sometimes several times a year. And it's been an incredible journey of inner transformation. And they told me much later, the Q'eros told me that they selected me because I was the reincarnation of an Inca princess. That's what they saw. And that I was the reincarnation of the most powerful Sha-woman who lived in Atlantis, and who was, because each Atlantis, there were 5 Atlantises, each had a Sha-woman, and there was one who was overseeing all of them, and apparently it was me. And I'm actually, my statue of that lifetime is in the Museum of Madrid right now. And
Wow.
it's actually a big mystery for the historians who can't figure out who this lady was. And then they, you know, they started initiating me more and more, teaching me some techniques. Then they also brought, you know, told me to bring people to Peru. Then they told me to start a school, and I was a reluctant shaman from the beginning. I mean, I loved shamanism because having my roots in Finland, Finland is the land of the Kalevala and the sacred land of the shamans. And the Kalevala is a very ancient text of runes that was at the basis of the Lord of the Rings. Tolkien was absolutely enamored by the Kalevala. And the Kalevala is a very strange story that mixes a lot of the, you know, pagan, traditional understanding of the cosmology of the world, and at the same time some elements from Christianity. But it is basically a shaman story, and the hero, Wainamoinen, who is born 700 years old, was a shaman, and he had a drum, and he would enchant people, and he would have specific, it wasn't spells because shamans don't do spells, but it was like certain chants that would manifest certain realities in the world. And every time I come back to my native Finland, my father was Finnish, my mother French. Every time I come back here, I feel the energy of the land. I'm always so happy here because the forests talk to me, the Baltic Sea, all the priests of the Baltic Sea, the rocks, the earth, the trees. There is something incredibly magical in the countryside of Finland, which is Finland. It's the end of land. So there is like 14,000 lakes, probably a lot more even.
Wow.
You can actually buy an island in Finland. It's pretty cool. And there's almost more lakes than there's land here. And now, especially now, we have like 23 hours of daylight a day. So it's pretty crazy when it's 11 p.m. midnight. It's still broad daylight, and it's very hard to go to sleep right now because it's light all day long.
That happens here in Canada and northern Alberta as well. Where,
oh,
yeah, you know, that northern hemisphere, right? Where there's daylight all night.
But you do lose track of time. It's very bizarre to have daylight all day long because all of a sudden you just are in a you know, disorienting. It's very disorienting. And in the winter, of course, it's the opposite. It's night all day long. So then it's like you go in hibernation. You just want to sleep all day and be like,
go within. Oh no. Well, it is entirely possible, because Michelle is calling into this from Finland, that we have a, oh, she's back.
Yeah,
Yay.
there was a little pause. You know, you know, we just love that you are, you know, your stories. And I love that shaman, you know, how the Q'ero, you know, they really protected you from that train crash, right? You know, they likely knew that you were, you know, somewhere on that spiritual plane or something, that you were coming to Peru. And it was just a matter of if you accepted your journey or your path, right? And I mean, the shaman is one part of you. I mean, you have so many, your resume is this long, and of course people can go on your website and learn a lot more about you. But you know, because Cheryl and I are, you know, here in Canada, it always, you know, I just think it's fun that I can tell people. I say, do you know that my friend Michelle Karen is the French navigator if you have a Honda in Canada? And they go, what? And you know, so I mean, I use that story a lot, right? And they go, really? And I go, yeah. And she's an amazing astrologer. And you know, I remember when I was, you know, probably in those preteens or whatever, reading the same astrology book that you did, and you know, being you know, just amazed by, you know, all of the information, but I never took it the next step further, and you did. And so prior to reading, is it Linda Goodman's book of astrology? Yeah, prior to reading that book, you know, what was your upbringing like? Were your parents, like you said, your father was Finnish, your mother was French, you know, were they at all in the metaphysical realm, or were they religious, or did you just have just a normal child upbringing? Then one day you read the book and said, hey mom, hey dad, I want to be an astrologer?
Pretty much, yes. I don't know how normal my upbringing was, because we changed countries all the time. When I was 1 year old, we moved from Finland to England. When I was 5, we moved from London to Paris. When I was 10, we moved from Paris to Geneva, Switzerland. When I was 14, we moved to Geneva, Switzerland to Washington, D.C. And then we went back to Geneva, and then I moved to Canada. I was in Montreal for several years. Then I lived in Colombia for a while. Then I was in the States. Then I went back to France, and now I'm back in Finland. So, you know, there was constantly this idea of living in a suitcase my whole life, pretty much. And my parents were, my mother was atheist, so she absolutely did not believe in God. And my father was coming from a family of priests, and because my Finnish side of the family, there were priests at every generation. His father was a priest, my uncle was a priest, and at my generation there were no priests, so I think I took over in a different way.
Well, you are the Inca goddess, right? The priestess, of course.
Well, that's what the Q'eros say, but you know, so no, there was no religious upbringing in my family. My father was going around with the New Testament when he met my mother, and there was always at my grandfather's house, you know, there was always a seat for the uninvited guest or the unknown guest, and there was always prayer before we ate. But otherwise, I was not raised in any way. And I had a little Catholic period when I was 17. I was living in Washington, D.C. I was going to the French school, and I had like a bunch of friends. And one of them was living at the French parish. And he invited me to the Mass, and I thought this was so cool. So I went to the Mass for a while. And I had a meeting with the priest, who of course wanted me to become Catholic. I was baptized Protestant in Finland because my grandfather was a Protestant priest. And I was interested. I read, you know, the whole story of Jesus and all that. I thought it was pretty cool. And but then when he told me that the Catholic Church does not believe in astrology, I was like, okay, I'm out of here. Ciao. It was
Hi.
nice meeting you. But that was it for me. So that was my little thing into the Catholic Church. But it ended with, we don't believe in astrology. And
Okay, so
yeah,
let's talk a little bit about astrology,
well, when,
because I
yeah.
know that, you know, people are always looking for some insight and whatever. You know, maybe you can just, I know you have a beautiful newsletter that you put out once a month, and of course, we're going to put the links and, you know, for people to get a hold of you and all of that stuff. But yeah, I'm just curious, you know, what is the rest of this year kind of look like astrologically? And you know, is it maybe more so for one astrological sign or the other? Is there one astrological sign that's going to do really well for the remainder of this year and the following year? And which astrological sign is going to be like, you know, have to work harder?
Anita, talk about putting the poor woman on the spot.
If you want to answer, and if not, that's okay.
No, this is a complex question actually, because we are made of all the signs and all the planets. So you can't tell that one person is going to do great, another is not going to do great. You know, because we have our sun sign, but we also have our Mercury sign,
Right.
our ascendant. We have all these. We are made of a bunch of different astrological influences. But what I can tell you on a global level is that the next year and a half, it's going to go from, I hate to say that, but it's going to go from pretty much bad to worse. And we have to brace ourselves. But I feel astrologically by 2023, we're really going to start seeing the light again. So it's not like it's going to last forever, this whole drama and this whole restrictions and difficulties. And the beauty of this period, because I think we need to look at the positive aspect of what is going on, is that the truth of people is coming out. The truth, it's not that there's more darkness than before, but it is much more visible than before. And in that sense, there is a chance to see what always was there, but was hidden, was buried, and now it's coming out for all to see. And nobody can really hide. It's a time where the false prophets are becoming exposed. It's a time where all the people who were very corrupt are also becoming, very visible. All the laws that are corrupt are coming very visible. So it's kind of a time where we can just sit and enjoy the ride, pretty much, and see who is who and what is what. But there is a lot of misinformation, and with Neptune in Pisces and retrograde until the end of this year, there's going to be more and more fake information. There's going to be more and more things that are confusing, where we hear one thing and it's opposite, where we have to have enormous discernment. And we have to be very aware of listening to our intuition, because our intuition will tell us what is real and what is not. And we need to be very aware of that, very in tune with ourselves. What doesn't feel right is not right, and that's it. Period.
Awesome. And again, I know that you're offering all kinds of classes, and there's lots of ways that people can connect with you to have their own personal astrological reading and all of those things. And you have a beautiful new card deck, quantum card deck out. So lots of tools for people to follow their intuition or to get discernment, right? Like those, your new card deck would be an awesome tool for that.
It is. I'm
Right?
amazed, and that was my confinement baby, actually. And it was this person whom I did not know. I never met him. It was he came, Daniel Renjak, from Eastern Europe, Slovenia. He came for a reading, And he told me that he does those beautiful rock paintings and he receives those mandalas in meditation. And he was thinking of doing a card deck, and he was looking for someone to do the writing, the writing part. And he felt that I was a good fit. And I'm always a little cautious, you know, when people approach me with those kinds of things. But when I saw the quality of his paintings, I was blown away. And I said, absolutely, I will do this with you. And it turned out that it so happened that then the whole world stopped. There was no conferences, no traveling, so I had all the time to create that deck. And I thought, you know, I've written many books, so I thought, oh, writing an oracle deck, piece of cake, right? It was the most difficult writing ever, because it had to be, you know, with the concept of it's an oracle, and it was based on astrology, so it was all the planets in the elements, which is an unusual way of looking at it, because usually you look at the planets in the signs but not in the elements. So I had to literally, I feel I wrote with my blood, you know, and he was very encouraging, and I'm glad he was, because I almost gave up a few times. I thought there's no way I can put this together, and now I'm amazed because I'm looking at my own cards and they're accurate. They're so accurate for whatever question you may have. They are so accurate, and I'm amazed myself, even though I wrote the cards. So I don't know. I'm blowing my own horn, but I'm very proud of this deck. It's a very unique deck and very magical, and it has incredible energy. And a friend of mine, when she received her deck, she said, "How did you perfume the deck?" I said, "What?" And she said, "Yeah, when I opened it, there was this frankincense, smell." I said, "Really?" And I opened a few boxes just to check, and she was right. So that's like the perfume of the divine. I don't know how to explain it otherwise, because we did not.
That is truly magical.
Wow.
And what an alchemist.
Completely. You don't by chance have one of your decks there so viewers could see what they look like, do you?
I have just to get it. It's just
please, that would be exciting. While she's talking about it, I have to share that a couple friends of mine have your deck, Michelle. And the first time they brought it out, they would pull a card and you could feel the energy from the cards.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, those paintings that Danielle made are incredible.
Beautiful.
And they carry so much power. It's just amazing how beautiful they are. I mean, all of them are just stunning.
Gorgeous.
And it comes with a little booklet, and it comes, I don't know if you can see it very well. There's too much reflection here.
Yeah.
Something.
Well, when you're back in the US, I'm going to get you to send me a package.
Yes, absolutely.
And how can people get them?
You can order them on my website, michellecaren.com /oracle-deck.
Yeah, we'll put it in the comments for everybody to make sure that they can contact you, get a hold of you.
Absolutely.
I'm so excited, and he did such a beautiful design in the back. They're just like magical. There's just, I'm so excited about them. I'm so proud. It's my confinement baby.
And you know what? For a lot of people, there were some amazing things that came out of the pause, or
Absolutely.
and there were just there were some real gifts, right? And so
for me it was a huge blessing, because I was traveling non-stop. I mean, I was on a plane every Friday, every Monday, 200 people during the weekend, then readings, 5 readings a day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then back on the plane. And when all this stopped, all of a sudden I started to breathe. I started to, be able to sleep, focus on my dreams. I started developing other classes, other things that were exciting to me. And it was just wonderful, really. For me, it was really a blessing, because I felt I was on this fast train that never stopped. I felt I had a day that started in January and ended in June. It was awful.
Yeah.
It was like
And so
running after the clock.
when you say traveling, and you know, you were traveling with Lee Carroll with the Cryon team,
I
as
was.
Cheryl and
I
I
was.
were for a little while there as well. And that's always kind of curious too. How did you start? How did the door
Well,
open for you to travel?
you know, it's a long story that I'm going to try and make very short. But basically, I started working with Dr. Todd, and that's a weird story how I met him. And every year he would introduce me to Lee Carroll, and Lee Carroll every year had no clue who I was. He could never remember me for whatever reason. And one day I got to be a vendor at one of his events because I became friends with the European organizer, and that's how it began. And then he accepted me, you know, as a vendor. And then one day I'm in Mount Shasta, and my mother had just died, and it was a very difficult time in my life. And there was this lady who kept wanting a reading, and I said, "Look, my mother's in the hospital, she's dying, I'm not doing any readings." And she said, "Meh, it's a question of life and death," and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, she got me into doing her reading. And the question of life or death was basically she was in love with a guy who was married and who didn't want anything to do with her. So it was a very difficult reading. I was going myself through a very difficult time, and I did everything in my power to get her to some common sense and to accept the situation that clearly she was not accepting. And she was married herself, by the way. So anyway, I finished that reading, and then Lee Carroll, who never talked to me, came to my table and he said, "By the way, you know this woman?" I said, "Yes, I remember her." And he said, "Well, she told me very bad things about your reading of her, and I told her to throw away your reading." And I was like, "What?" And I did not react. I was so shocked. I just didn't react at all. Well, yeah, I clearly didn't tell her what she wanted to hear, right? So anyway, I just marinated that for a few days, and then one morning at 3 a.m. I wake up and I'm like, I have to write to Lee Carroll. So I wrote a long letter explaining the situation, what I had done for this woman, and that who was he to tell her to throw away the reading when I had taken great pains, and if she had been able to listen to it over and over again, she would have probably been geared in a new direction that would have given her a whole new life. And I went to bed. I went back to bed, and I wake up at 8 in the morning, and I'm like, what did I do? Because I didn't really know Lee Carroll at the time, you know, and he kept forgetting about me. So anyway, I opened my email like really like trembling, and there were two emails from Lee, and I thought, oh, this is not good. And one email was actually, he had copied me, and it went to Elan, who is his organizer in the US, and saying, "Elan, whenever Michelle wants to be part of the Crane event, she's invited." And I'm like, wow. And the second, he explained to me that he knew I had done a very good job, but he also saw that this lady was not ready to hear what I had to say, and that she was starting to speak very badly about me, and it was actually a protection of me to tell her to throw away the reading. So that, of course, gave a completely different context to what he had said. And then after, I started becoming a vendor, and then one day I said to him, "You know, I'm traveling with you, and I'm an astrologer, you know that. Would you like me to do a little presentation on stage?" And he said, "Sure." So I started giving a little presentation, and it was pretty cool, because then at one point, Cryon through Lee Carroll came through and said about me that I was the master astrologer, that I was bringing astrology, quantum astrology for the first time to this planet, that I was reading the Akash directly. And that was kind of a shock to hear that, because he doesn't normally give personal readings to anyone. And this was in public. It was at an event that I was not even going to be at, and I happened to be there. And then when we were in Barcelona, there was another much longer channeling where he said, Cryon said that I had all those time capsules that were going to start opening and that I was a lot more powerful than I knew, etc., etc. So that was an amazing, beautiful confirmation for me.
Yeah. And again, just to reiterate that, so for those of, our flock that are, cryonites, right, that know Lee Carroll. So Cryon said that Michelle Karen, right here, is the only master quantum astrologer in the world.
Yeah.
Who also reads the Akash when she's doing a reading. So again, we're pretty pretty honored to call you our friend. And
I'm just me, I'm just me.
Yeah.
But for me, it was really an amazing channeling because I had previously been doing some readings in Latvia. I had an event in Latvia, and they all had those Russian complicated names. And at the time, I was doing readings in person. And I have this lady who comes in, and I do her reading. And all of a sudden, she's looking over my shoulder, and she says, "Wait, I wasn't born in May. I wasn't born in '58. And oh my God, this is not my chart." And I'm like, "Oh, this is not good." And she said, "But everything you said was correct." I said, "Well, astrology works in mysterious ways. What can I say?" I had no explanation. And then the right person whose chart it was, which I had just been reading, I'm reading again the same chart, and the reading was completely different. And I could not explain it myself. It didn't make any sense at all. But when I got that channeling from Cryon, it all made sense because I'm using the chart. I need a chart to do a reading. I cannot just do a reading like that. I need the chart, but the planets speak to me. I don't know how to explain it. It's like I see threads of light when I'm doing a reading, and they direct me. And sometimes I can do a whole reading and not even be aware of what sign a person is. It just, I don't read the same. I don't know. I just read in a different way. And I've always read like that. And I realized when I became a shaman that I was reading in a shamanic way, the chart. So it's very mysterious, and a lot of people, I used to teach actually when I was in my 20s, 30s, I taught astrology a lot, and people are asking me all the time if I want to teach astrology, and I'm always like, I don't know. I'm excited to teach shamanism now. I'm excited by my shamanic school. I don't know. Astrology can get very in your head, and the way I work is so second nature for me. It's so instinctive that I mean I could explain it, I guess, but it's difficult. It's not something I'm excited
that
to
you
do.
could teach. Yeah.
I mean, I could teach it. Probably. I don't think my heart.
Well, we have already gone.
I know.
And of course, we're gonna have to have you as our guest again. I know that for sure. Cheryl,
Yes.
anything else you wanted to say to wrap it up? Because
oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Like, again, we could listen to you talk, your stories, Michelle, your talents, it's so fascinating. I'm going through all these stories in my head, trying to do the imagery and the pictures, and it's like, what a life. Fascinating. One last question to wrap up this version, because I agree with Anita. I think there's going to be a part 2. What gets you juiced right now? Like, what lights you up that you can't wait to do?
For me, it's shamanism. My heart is so into shamanism, and I'll tell you a secret, because people see me as an astrologer, as a shaman, but my real dream is to be a novelist. And I actually did write novels in the past, when I was in my 20s, my 30s. And I really want to go back to that. Stories and fun stories that, of people changing their lives, of people having all sorts of magical adventures. You know, when I read Harry Potter, I was like, that is exactly the book I would love to write.
Oh, cool.
So really for me, it's stories. I'm fascinated with humanity. I'm fascinated with people's evolution, how people meet. It's just, I discovered this amazing show. It's a French show on YouTube of, you know, putting people together, and it's just amazing. It's such hot, you know, warming situations, and so I'm just fascinated with life. I'm in love with life. I'm in love with learning. I'm in love with stories, legends, fairy tales, and of course shamanism, which is our connection to Mother Earth, the trees, the plants, the animals, the rocks. All of that is just so magical.
And you can see that in her energy field, because she talks about it and she just glows.
Yep. So Michelle Karen, the novelist.
Yay. New step, next transition, right?
And then they'll make a whole, you know, film about it, and then you can be the actress, because you are an actress, and oh yeah, it's all good. Okay, awesome. Okay, I love it. I love that you spent your time with us all the way from Finland, and we definitely will have you again, because I know that our flock is going to be like, oh, tell us more about that Inca priestess. You know, we want to know more about her. Yeah.